This is a horse riding controller for PC. It has reins, stirrups, something that vaguely resembles a saddle, and a tiny microcontroller handling all the inputs. It supports multiple profiles, can emulate keyboard, mouse, or even gamepad, and has modular design. But before I explain any further, we need to ask one important question. Why? About 2 years ago, I was at my friend's place watching them play some old horse riding game. At one point, half-jokingly, I asked, "Why don't you have some kind of riding controller for games like this?" And my friend said something like, "There's no controllers like that. We already have all kinds of controllers on the market, fly stick, racing wheels, and fishing rods. But somehow, nobody had made a proper controller for horse riding games, which is strange. So I got an idea. What if we make something like that?" And it didn't take long before I had made my first prototype. It was terrible, like really terrible. I used like joystick module for the reins, and for some reason I had brilliant idea to use mechanical key switches for the stirrups. It was loud. But biggest problem was that I knew basically nothing about horse riding. I should have researched more about the topic and asked more input from my friend. So the prototype didn't go very far, and eventually we dropped the idea. Until about 3 months ago, that's when we decided to try again, and this time we actually made something usable. The new controller needed a frame for all the sensors, so I started building something similar to the old prototype. This time though, instead of using mechanical switches, I used infrared distance sensors. I could have chosen something fancier, however, these sensors are super easy to use and surprisingly reliable. I designed a small housing for a sensor with a moving flap. When you pull the reins, the flap moves and the sensor tracks the position. The elastic band connects both sides together because we wanted the resistance to change when both reins are pulled at the same time. The stirrups use similar sensors, so we can also track their movement. But instead of acting like a simple buttons, the sensor detects a kick-like motion. That's not exactly realistic horse riding behavior, but I'll get back to that later. All the sensors connect to a microcontroller that processes the inputs and converts them into something games can understand. This RP2040 is running CircuitPython and it has native USB HID, so there is no need for any special drivers. That wooden frame worked kinda well, but it had some issues. For example, changing sensor position meant drilling entirely new holes. Luckily, I had some stainless steel pipes from a old IKEA shoe rack, so with a few 3D printed parts, I built a new frame. Is it perfect? No, it has some flex in it, but thankfully it doesn't affect gameplay that much. I also added a few extra buttons, one for switching profiles, one for pause, and 4 extra buttons for menus or whatever else game might need. So, how does this actually work? Starting with the reins. If you want to turn, pull left or right like this. To slow down, pull both reins lightly. And for stop completely, pull them all the way back. The stirrups are used to signal movement. Some games separate moving actions in different keys, so controller can output different inputs depending how quickly you move the stirrup. And of course, you can even reverse with rein back action. To do that, pull the reins slightly back, and then signal with the stirrup. As long as you keep the reins pulled, the horse will keep reversing. Release them and it will stop. There are also a few extra actions, like jumping. Now, in real horse riding, there isn't really a jump signal, but games usually have something similar, so my solution was this. Move both legs forward and pull reins slightly. Is it realistic? Nope, but it works for now. And if you prefer using your right foot instead of your left, you can change that in the profile settings, which brings us to the profile editor. The profile system is surprisingly flexible. Open as JSON file on the CircuitPython drive. You can choose whether the controller emulates keyboard, mouse, joystick, or combination of all three. And since every riding game uses a different control scheme, custom profiles are basically required. The goal was to make this work as many games as possible, not just one. Profile system also supports simple macros, toggle keys, hold keys, and a few other useful features. But sometimes for camera movement or mouse movement, a joystick may be useful. So this was my solution. With this, you can control the camera, mouse movement or other action depending on the game. I also programmed 2 gesture inputs that you can activate when you flick the controller quickly left or right. You can usually find used ones for under 10 euros, and third-party replacements cost almost nothing.
Yep. Shit! God damn it! Easy now. And always rely on you, boy. Yep. Get up there. You know, you right, boy? No, he's slipping from us. No way. Stop him. Don't worry. He's no down, folks. Whoa, easy. Settle down, boy.
All the files, code, 3D models, everything are available on GitHub. The link is down below. The CircuitPython code isn't optimized yet, but this is still very much a prototype. Controller's electronics are hand-wired and some printed parts could be designed better, but if you are interested in building one of these riding controllers and you have access to a 3D printer and some basic tools, you could probably build one of these around 60 to 70 euros. And if people are interested in this project, we may consider making the next revision. So what revision 2 may look like? One big improvement will be a custom PCB with a OLED display for changing profiles and settings directly on the controller. Custom PCBs are surprisingly affordable these days, and it would make the whole build process much cleaner and easier. I already have some ideas, but nothing finalized yet. The rain sensors actually work pretty well already, and only need some improvements like springs and bearings. The stirrups though definitely need some improvements. As I said earlier, the current system isn't very realistic. In riding, you don't just move the stirrups, you also guide the horse with pressure from your legs. Very simplified, you squeeze the horse with your shins, so it's possible that next revision will use load cell or something similar. But that would also require a completely redesigned frame. And speaking of the frame, smaller footprint, less flex, and more realistic sitting position would be all nice improvements. And maybe a possibility to connect the controller to the Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4 or something else. So the end result is actually surprisingly fun. Sometimes I just spend hours riding around the map, no doing any quests or objectives, just riding. The same doesn't happen with a basic game, but it just doesn't feel the same. And while I handled most of the technical side, coding, electronics, 3D modeling, all that, this project succeeded because of my friend. Their experience with horse riding was a crucial part of this project. If you have ideas for this project, leave a comment. And if you want to see more projects like this, consider subscribing. Thanks for watching and see you next time.